Over 1,000 years ago, when much of the world was trapped in myths and legends, a man was quietly measuring the earth, studying the stars, and writing books that would outlive empires. His name was Al-Biruni, a man so brilliant that historians call him the genius of the millennium. Early life. The boy who looked at the sky. Al-Biruni was born in 973 CE in Khwarezm, a region of Central Asia. From his childhood, he was different. While other children played games, young Al-Biruni spent hours staring at the sky, asking questions no one else dared to ask. Why did the stars move? How big is the earth? What lies beyond the horizon? By the age of 17, he had already written papers on astronomy. Imagine that. While teenagers today are just finishing school, Al-Biruni was inventing methods to calculate the Earth's radius. Al-Biruni wasn't just a scientist of one field. He was a polymath, a master of many sciences, astronomy and mathematics. He measured shadows, predicted eclipses, and calculated Earth's tilt. Physics. He studied gravity, motion, and the density of minerals. Geography and geology. He explained how mountains and rivers form. History and religion. He wrote about ancient nations, calendars, and cultures. Medicine. He studied health, the human body, and natural remedies. He wanted to understand everything, from the smallest stone to the infinite heavens. His journey to India. One of the most fascinating chapters of his life came when Al-Biruni traveled to India. But unlike many travelers of his time, he did not arrive with pride or arrogance. Instead, he arrived with curiosity and respect. He learned Sanskrit, spoke with Hindu scholars, and read sacred texts like the Vedas. From this, he wrote his legendary book, Kitab al-Hind, the Book of India. This wasn't just a book about India's geography or politics. It was a window into Indian culture, philosophy, science, and religion. He wrote without judgment, describing Indian customs with fairness and detail. For this, historians say, Al-Biruni was the first anthropologist in history, the first man to study cultures not as an outsider, but as a humble learner. His discoveries and inventions. Al-Biruni's discoveries were centuries ahead of his time. Let's walk through some of his genius. Earth's size. Using shadows and trigonometry, he calculated the Earth's circumference with an error of less than 1%. Modern science would not achieve this level of accuracy until centuries later. Density of minerals. He invented an early hydrostatic balance to measure the density of precious stones and metals, a method still admired today. Earth's rotation. He argued that Earth rotates on its axis, long before Copernicus or Galileo. Mapping the world. He measured longitudes and latitudes with accuracy far beyond his time. Chronology. He studied calendars from Persians, Greeks, Indians, and Muslims, showing how humans perceive time differently. Medicine. He described diseases, treatments, and even psychology, linking physical health with the mind. Everywhere he looked, he asked, why? How? And then proved it with mathematics and observation. Interesting facts about Al-Biruni. He wrote over 150 books, though sadly not all have survived. He mastered multiple languages: Arabic, Persian, Sanskrit, Greek, and Syriac. He believed, to know a people, you must first know their language. He worked under kings, but he never allowed politics to corrupt his search for truth. He combined science with culture and humanity, something very rare, even today. His style of research was so fair and unbiased that modern scientists still praise him as a model of objectivity. His legacy. Al-Biruni lived in an age when superstition often ruled over reason. But he dared to measure, calculate, and question. He showed the world that science has no religion, no language, no borders. Knowledge, he believed, was the shared treasure of humanity. His works influenced scholars in the Middle East, India, and later Europe. And even today, scientists look back at his writings in awe. So next time you hear about Galileo or Copernicus, remember this. Centuries before them, a man named Al-Biruni stood under the same stars, asking the same questions, and already discovering their answers. Al-Biruni wasn't just a scholar. He was a bridge, connecting cultures, sciences, and generations. 1,000 years later, his light still shines, reminding us that the pursuit of knowledge is the greatest journey of all. Al-Biruni was a contemporary of Ibn Sina, Avicenna. In fact, they exchanged letters debating science and philosophy. Sometimes they agreed, sometimes they fiercely disagreed, but both respected each other's genius. He lived during the rule of the Ghaznavid dynasty, under Sultan Mahmud of Ghazni and later his son Mas'ud. While he worked in their courts, he always kept his independence of thought. His scientific achievements, beyond the famous ones. Optics and vision. He studied how light travels, refraction, and how the eye perceives images, centuries before modern optics. Mineralogy. He wrote Kitab al-Jawahir about gems, stones, and metals, explaining how to identify them. Physics of water. He experimented with how water flows and how pressure works, an early step toward hydrostatics. Geology. He noticed fossils and suggested that parts of the Earth were once covered by sea, a very early geological insight. Medicine and pharmacy. He wrote about herbs, drugs, and their effects, not just for physical health but also psychological well-being. His unique way of thinking. Unlike many medieval scholars, he insisted on experiments and direct observation instead of just relying on old texts. He combined science with philosophy. For him, knowledge was not just about how things work, but also about understanding the unity of nature and humanity. He was one of the first to say that science should be free from religious or cultural bias. His influence on the world. In Europe, his works were translated into Latin in the Middle Ages and influenced scholars of the Renaissance. In India, his Kitab al-Hind remains a priceless source for historians about early Indian culture. Modern scientists still admire his methodology, saying he was 1,000 years ahead of his time. Personal side of Al-Biruni. He never married. His life was completely dedicated to research, writing, and teaching. He was deeply humble. Despite his genius, he often wrote, "I am only a student of knowledge, seeking truth." Even in his old age, when he was near death, he asked a visiting scholar to teach him a new concept. When the man protested, saying, "This is not the time for learning," Al-Biruni replied, "Is it not better to die knowing something than to die ignorant?" That was his last recorded statement, a true scholar until his final breath.